number 65 with 112 points. He was on Andretti's list at 90. He was on Mongoose's list at 82. He was on JC's list at 48. And he was on my list at 72. And that is Jake the Snake Roberts. And, Jake, he's one of those guys that he didn't do a lot in the ring. He didn't do anything crazy, but his finisher, the DDT, is one, he's the only person that makes a DDT look like that. Nobody else makes a DDT look that damn good. And, all the infamous stories about him carrying the snake. I think, wasn't the snake's name Adrian, I believe?
It was Damien.
Sorry, I was close. But the snake, and how they used to carry him around, and how he would be in DDP's house, and the fact that Macho Man made Jake have the snake bite him to prove that it was
a funny story,
which is so incredibly funny. And that moment with Macho Man, with that snake biting Macho Man's arm, is one of the greatest segments that WWF television has ever produced.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was my mom and dad were never into wrestling. They always thought it was the stupidest thing in the world, especially my dad, right? My dad just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. I remember watching that on TV when Savage was tied up in the freaking ropes and the snake was biting him. And my dad walked in I'll never forget this. My dad walks, he goes, "That's not real. That snake's not really biting him." And then he stood there for a second and was watching it. And then it got revealed. It really bit him, right? The snake really bit him, and my dad's freaking jaw almost hit the ground, dude. His eyes bugged out of his head. My dad was like, "That guy really got bit. He's gonna get poisoned from that snake."
What I love is about Jake is that Jake, by all accounts, is Hoganish in that none of those stories are real. like about him. Hey, Macho said, "Hey, you want to put this? You better have the snake bite you first." They're so good stories, but probably none of them are real. But he's so good at telling them, man.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I think that I'd have Jake higher if Jake didn't come back and be a person that I didn't want to see on TV at all for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he sucks. He just sucks, and it's not his fault, man.
Let me say this though. I will say this. I really like Vinny Marsiglia with him, because Vinny is pretty damn good, and he's a psychological wrestler.
Well, him being with the Righteous is way better than him being with Archer.
I actually think that trios team with Dutch and Marsiglia and Archer is actually a really good faction with Jake in it too. I think it's a really good move.
Yeah, I'll give you credit for that. That group, or that tag team, especially with him, is way better than just him with Archer, because he would come out to talk for Archer, and this is at a time where everything AEW did, I was ready to tell everybody how good it was.
Yeah,
and I was ready to turn the TV, man.
Whenever they introduced Lance Archer, that was really good shit.
Yeah. And so a couple things with Jake that I need to say. First off, everybody that ever was a boy in 1989 through 92 had the Hasbro of Jake the Snake with the snake.
Absolutely.
And the reason you knew is that even if they weren't wrestling fans, if you looked in your buddy's toy bin, you'd find the snake. They had the snake, right? So at least, that at least they had that Hasbro.
That Hasbro's awesome.
It is incredible. Yep. And the fact that it had the snake, and that snake was just so ubiquitous in everybody's toy bin at that time, is great. I need to say that we brought this up a couple of weeks ago. The match with Martel, the blindfold match, is great. Spin the wheel, make the deal. Coal miner's glove with Sting. One of the worst matches you'll ever see in your life. But, dude, I was all the way in. Yeah. Jake the Snake in a bar, spinning the wheel and making the deal.
That was a huge deal with him at WCW.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He just loved the crack and the cocaine and everything else that came
Who
with
doesn't?
it.
Who doesn't?
Right. We also have, you want to talk about like historic wrestling things. We also have his daughter reading that poem about how terrible of a dad he is and Beyond the Mat.
Oh my
Like these are iconic things
yes.
that go. You have 600-pound Jake and just drug riddled and not being good at that WWA event. And then all of a sudden you have him at the recovery crib, with Dallas. So I'm so up and down on Jake the Snake.
Yeah.
He needed to be here. I always wished I could have his wrestling buddy. That was the one. I had Hulk. He's still upstairs on the rocking chair in Baby Mongus's room. I wished that I had Jake the Snake more than Hulk Hogan, or excuse me, more than Ultimate Warrior, more than DiBiase, the Legion of Doom. That was a great wrestling buddy. He's an all-timer, man. He deserves to be here.
I mean, not an easy life. That guy has not had an easy life, right out the gate. Probably his own worst enemy after that, with everything that you mentioned. But I mean, a super believable creep is probably.
You go into really quick to cut in there. You want to talk about Jake Roberts' bullshit stories? I was more jacked than Hulk Hogan, and they told me, because I was taking steroids, and they told me be less jacked.
Yeah,
because we can't. Oh yeah, that happened, Jake. Yeah, in an era where they were throwing tens of thousands of dollars at people to just be juiced. The Warlord, tell the Warlord they told him to be less jacked.
right.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, what a liar. But whatever, dude. It is what it is.
I mean, but the thing about that guy, man, impossible not to watch that guy, right? When he's on, he's just impossible not to watch. And I think that's such an
innovator of the Whisper promo.
Yeah,
very innovative.
One of the things too, one of my favorite things in wrestling, and just from growing up at that era, the stuff with him and the Ultimate Warrior and the Undertaker when they're in the cemetery doing those vignettes in the cemetery when Jake buries the Undertaker alive. That is some of my favorite stuff ever in wrestling, and it never ended. They never had a conclusion to it, right? Just because the Warrior ended up leaving, and they never got the match. We never got the matches out of that, right? We were supposed to get like an Ultimate Warrior, Jake Roberts feud, right? They just never materialized because the Warrior left.
Yep, and then Jake went to WCW shortly thereafter.
Yeah,
because when the Warrior came back in '92, Jake was at Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal in WCW because of the issues that he had with WWF.
But yeah, super excited that Jake absolutely deserves to be on the list. Properly rated. Love that he made the list here. But getting into the next one, number 64 with 116 points. He was on